This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Good evening. You want to say good evening?
He's such a good boy.
We are so deep in the spooky season now, and I feel like it's been a little too long since I did an art video on the channel, specifically a turning Pinterest images into character design kind of art video. And I definitely feel like it's been too long since I've drawn you guys some spooky, spicy ladies. I know why you're here. So in the spirit of the season today, I want to draw some monster girls. Not just any monster girls inspired by prompts that you guys came up with. As usual, I put a little call to action out on my Instagram story asking you guys to send me Pinterest images to then turn into character designs for this week. You guys definitely answered the call as usual. There are so many of these, so without any further ado, let's see what ingredients you guys sent to me, haha. Okay, let's see what we got. Quick disclaimer ahead of things. Some of these might be AI images. I can't really control what people send me. I will try my absolute darndest to avoid those, because we don't do that on this channel. But also, it's hard sometimes. Try my best here. I will not design characters based off of those. We have a spooky little guy. I really want to do one of those silly ghost photo shoots this year. Who's down? Who's coming with me? Whose car are we taking? And it did not take long for you guys to send me weird stuff. Oh, I didn't even realize how gnarly that was at first. That's cool. Me, October 1st every year. I'm just a cat screaming on top of a pumpkin. Hell yeah. We got some hands. Oh, this is so cute. Look at that little guy. We got another pumpkin cat. Take a shot every time there is a pumpkin cat. You're gonna get wasted in about 2 minutes. Oh, pumpkin cat. Take another shot. Oh, the vintage Halloween. Oh, it's such good energy. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, that's so... Oh, this is so sick. This is so cool. Me and the girls having a bonfire. I saw this one earlier. Oh, but also, somebody needs to clean out their fridge. Oh, me and who? Me and who? Give me your dogs. Me and who? Pumpkin cat. Take another shot. What is that? Oh. Another pumpkin cat! Every time. Every time. Oh. Cute little poison apples. Just so lemon. Oh, can I help you? Oh, yeah. Oh, I saw this one earlier. I hate it. Oh, that's so nice. Delightful. What in the... Pumpkin cat, take another shot. Delicious. Ugh. Pumpkin cat. There's another one. Oh man, this is making me want these cookies. Just a guy, he seems nice. Pumpkin cat. Okay, as usual, there's way too many responses to go through all of them on camera, but I have gone through all of them off camera for once. And after a little bit of brainstorming, I decided I want to do things a little bit differently this time around. There's just too much good material here, but there's also kind of repeat material or images that have very similar vibes. So I'm gonna do like I've done in the past. Take a collection of images from a bunch of you guys, turn them into individual themed mood boards, but then I'm also going to scour Pinterest, find a couple of images to just sort of round things out and complete a character concept for a particular type of monster. I thought of a lot of really cool themes as I was kind of scrolling through things, so I'm gonna go make some of those boards and brainstorm, and then we're gonna get drawing. And you might be wondering where I put all of these characters once I'm done with them. And the answer to that is on my portfolio, which is powered by this video sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace gives all of my characters that I immediately abandon after I design them a place to live. Thanks to tools like their drag and drop website builder, Fluid Engine, and tools like automatic image scaling that arrange and scale my pieces with the click of a button. Once I'm done with my illustrations, I can just pop them on my Squarespace website. They're there fully arranged on my front page for site visitors to view with very little input from myself. And if I want to go even more in depth with my OCs, Squarespace makes it super easy to build customized pages for whatever you want to use them for. I often use mine for character profiles. I can start out with a template that fits my vision and then tailor it with all of the the media and text and all of the creative details that I want to include on my characters. And it is similarly easy to get started with your website in the first place. You can choose from dozens of fully customizable, flexible website templates that then allow you to have control over the details like text, colors, website graphics. And if people like what you're seeing from your character designs and art, that's perfect because Squarespace also has a fantastic e-commerce platform. They have a huge range of tools to accommodate whatever kind of seller you are, whether you sell physical goods, digital media, if you're an in-person seller, or if you're a busy seller, because they even have a custom merch feature which allows you to team with a print-on-demand service that will handle inventory, production, and shipping for you, so you can still sell prints of your work even if you're super busy, which is what I do. So if you want to give your characters and art a place to live or start a website for any other conceivable reason, you can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can head to squarespace.com/pricklyalpaca to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much as always to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now let's get designing. Alright, after much deliberation and submission perusing, my first character design is going to be based on this board, which is partially created by me with a couple little Pinterest images, but mostly created by images submitted by Lauralee Sparrow, Mad_Klein, Simca Mythicalia Froggy Draws, and Gracie Illustrations 06. So for my characters in this episode, I basically wanted to take a bunch of y'all's images that sort of had themes in common or I thought would go well together and use them to come up with a monster concept and then design off of that. So my concept with this one was kind of a man-eating zombie plant, kind of Venus flytrap themed, kind of just spooky death plant themed. I don't think I've ever designed anything with a Venus flytrap theme before, so I was really intrigued by doing that. And then I also remembered this iconic Pinterest image that took me forever to find that I thought would go perfect with this concept. It's this one here of a little planter sitting on top of a pair of just the lower body of like a zombie girl. So taking all those concepts, I wanted to kind of design a zombie that can only reside in kind of like a decaying dead garden. You know, it's fall time, so plants are not doing too well. Everything's kind of dying. It's getting too cold. Things aren't getting enough water, at least where I live. I feel like the plant folk are especially getting desperate for food and nutrients. So I think that this zombie girl is a combination of dying plants and maybe even, you know, decomposing human material that have joined together and are now causing havoc at like the local botanical gardens. I'll get to the lore in a moment, but first focusing on the design. Starting out, I had like a super specific pose in mind for this one. I kind of wanted all these characters to have really extreme poses, ones that leaned a little bit more into the horror or at least captured the characterization. So for this one, I knew I wanted her to be in the process of eating something, and I wanted her to be kind of like leaned back, relaxing with her jaw unhinged, ready to gobble whatever it is she's eating up. And I also wanted the pose to fully expose like her vacant rib cage and like spine and gutty works area, because I really wanted to kind of just pull straight from the image with the zombie legs for this girl. I kind of wanted to design her as a body that plants have kind of grown through and taken over, almost like the Last of Us core, but with plants instead of fungi. I wanted some of the plants to be based off of those skulls, sunflowers, some of them to be based off of the roses with the eyeballs, and of course some of them to be based off of Venus flytraps. So for the general design, I sort of made her a separate torso and a separate pair of legs, and I kept the idea of having like a flower pot or a plant on top of the pair of legs resting, but then I had like the vines and the various foliage coming from that pot, joining her very loosely to the top part of her body and her torso and everything, which I think looks absolutely disgusting. It's really an unsettling concept to me. I don't like it whenever that area is like missing from a design. It's just a thing with me with the horror stuff that will actually get to me. I think it's very effective here. I absolutely love it, but I basically made the little sunflower fellas growing out of that pot and kind of off to her side, making spooky faces and wanting dinner. I decided to kind of lean into the lingerie that was on the bottom pair of legs in the inspiration image. Just to be true to that, I usually like to stick mostly to the inspiration images whenever I'm designing for these videos, and I also wanted to design kind of like a cute pin-up-y monster girl with this. I think it makes it even more unsettling and like So to match her little pinup-y tights and panties, I decided to give her a cute little rose-themed wrap top. This is once again inspired by the eyeball roses on my board submitted by you guys, so of course I also had to put eyeballs in the middle of the roses, which means I added eyeballs to the shoulders. I added one to the chest that you'll probably see a little bit later in the video. I put a couple on her knees for good measure, and of course I added a couple of eyeballs to the titty area because I'm not trying to be tasteful with this design. Finally, for my specific Venus flytrap inspiration, I knew I definitely wanted to go for a Medusa vibe and have a bunch of little tiny Venus flytraps mouths just growing right out of her scalp. Lots of hungry little mouths to feed that probably wouldn't be too picky about what they're biting into. On the subject of mouths, I also wanted to really lean into a scary face and like just unsettling visual overall with this character, so I really tried to give her a very like unhinged open jaw kind of look. I feel like I made the vibe of her face and mouth like very yokai, very like pretty lady but demonic, ooh she's gonna eat me alive type of thing. I also gave her an unsettlingly long disturbing tongue and also gave tongues to both of her shoulder eyeballs just for good measure. I don't know, I was just feeling it. To accessorize the ensemble, I also kind of leaned into the lingerie but make it punk thing, so I gave her a spiky color to match all of her spiky teeth. I also added a pair of like weird horns. I don't know, I feel like they definitely reference some kind of plant or flowering shape, maybe even the proboscis of an insect. I also gave her a little pin-up-y style showgirl half skirt inspired by the leaves that are on the Little Shop of Horrors Venus flytrap plant. That's also something I saw a little bit whenever I was doing my own inspo board research. And finally for footwear, I gave her a pair of super chunky clompy heels with a bunch of spikes all over them that look like the teeth of a Venus flytrap. Whenever it came to rendering her, I definitely had a ton of trouble with the colors. I was initially going for a much more muted color palette, but I was also kind of trying to force myself out of my typical color palette range with some of these character designs, and like a more intense green, pink, purple color palette is not one that I utilize very often, so I kind of forced myself to go in that direction. I also think it was looking a little bit better and blending more with the sunflowers that I added to the design. Trying to figure out all of the pinks and purples and greens and the yellow together was definitely pretty difficult, but eventually I think I figured out something that blended together really well. And I also went pretty wild with the rendering stage on this one, so apologies in advance for that because I made it pretty gross. In the end, I decided the meal that this character would be chomping down on would be 2 gigantic oversized flies, and I also gave them like just a gross drippy liquid coming off of them because I don't know, spooky things. I wanted to make this one pretty nasty, just give it the energy of like decaying plant matter and undeadness. I sort of regret not giving her like a human limb to chow down on or something like that, but I feel like this is sort of grosser in some ways. I think it goes a little bit more with that, like I said, decaying plant vibe. And speaking of decaying plant vibes, I think that this would just be the weird plant zombie haunting your local botanical gardens. Like the botanical gardens, they know a couple of people have gone missing and they don't know exactly why, and they also know that a couple of like Venus flytrap specimens have also gone missing, and they're like, is there a link here? We don't know. You know, the security people have said they've seen some weird stuff going on, but I definitely think this zombie was created because some plants took over a corpse that was buried in the botanical gardens for some reason, and now they've adapted together in order to find food sources a little bit more easily, and I'm saying it explicitly, those food sources are definitely sometimes human. I also like to think that maybe some kind of evil genius scientist had a hand in this, like maybe someone was taking cuttings from the botanical gardens without permission, and they dropped like a specimen jar of something, and then some kind of weird mutation happened. Something fun like that. Anyways, this weird zombie girl is absolutely harassing the guests at these gardens. Some of them get eaten by her. Most of them just see something weird out of the corner of their eyes for a second, they look back and she's gone because she scuttered away on all fours because she doesn't have spinal support. I want you to, for a moment, imagine this thing moving or having to walk, but like in quadruped mode because, again, lack of spine. I also think that like if any part of her detaches or falls off, the plants can kind of just like grow it back into place because most of this is like not human material anymore, but plant material. So I think this monstrous beast definitely harasses the security guards. Like, imagine you shine a flashlight and this thing just kind of scuttles by on all fours, or you just see the legs sitting somewhere apart from the torso sitting somewhere, the head sitting somewhere, and then it's just gone. Someone needs to write a story now about like an infested botanical gardens where plant zombies are slowly taking over. Anyways, this is my plant zombie girl. She's so disgusting. I love her. Our next girl is gonna be based off of this board, which is kind of just Halloween candy, Halloween treats, all the yummy stuff you ate trick-or-treating as a kid that might cause nausea eventually, or even cavities. And this one was submitted by a combination of _StarryMakesArt _Mythicalia Lovable Bundles of Fun, Chrisam Cook, and Kara Elam. And as always, I don't know if I'm saying that right. So for our candy goal, as I'm calling her, this character concept is kind of just the idea that there's a cute little demon running around on Halloween, encouraging children to overindulge and eat too much, making them sick to their stomachs off candy and maybe throw up and maybe even develop cavities later. I think this character would be like a very mischievous little demon, mostly just trying to cause trouble in the form of like kind of just ruining your night and small inconveniences. Not necessarily nefarious, just mostly like kind of mean-spirited and fun for her because she's, well, a demon. Design-wise, I wanted to make her look super cute and enticing and just like a super fun time, something that kids would really like gravitate towards in terms of like the bright colors and all of the maximalism going on, with that like slightly darker undertone of like demonic features and overindulgence and kind of just sickening colors and stuff like that. So I was aiming very anime demon girl with this, and I also wanted to give her a similarly like super extroverted, poppy, inviting pose. Like, look at how fun this is. This couldn't possibly lead to consequences in the future. So I gave her like a super enthusiastic pose with one hand holding up like a jack-o'-lantern trick-or-treat bucket with candy flying out of it, and the other hand holding up one of those skull bowls from the inspiration picture with like Fruit Loops flying out of it. Since this character is focused a lot on like eating candy, I also had to lean into a mouth motif, which means mouths on places of the body that they don't typically belong. I of course made her actual mouth have super sharp oversized teeth with a couple even forming like a little underbite, but I also gave her mouths with sharp teeth on each of her hands and one also on her stomach, all of them with tongues sticking out. This is the part of the character that should really tip you off that she's not to be trusted. I also gave her later sharp pink claws, but they kind of just look like cute set of like pink acrylics or something. I gave her a little pair of bat wings to show that she's like a little ghoul or a demon, but it almost looks like a cute little Halloween costume the way she has them. And I also gave her several horns that just look like weird colored candy corns, but we'll get to that a little bit later. For the outfit styling itself, I kind of went for a mix of like scene kid Y2K fashion and like 2010s pastel goth, which I think really does capture the vibes that I was trying to go for with this. I gave her a cute little black ribbed crop top with a jack-o'-lantern face on it. I gave her like a purple pleated mini skirt. I gave her some pastel rainbow thigh highs, some sparkly ankle warmers, and some big old chunky tennis shoes that have like almost teeth on the bottom of them that make them look more like cleats. I also gave her like a little puffed cropped bomber jacket that goes over all of this and sort of like slinks over her shoulders, but later on you'll see that I made the coloring of this almost look like the cross between the color palette of candy corn and also like a caution jacket that someone on like a construction site would wear, or more like along the lines of PPE, almost to subtly show like, yeah, it's a fun time, but like maybe watch out, like giant caution flag waving in your face that trusting her maybe not a good idea. I feel like that also extends to the horns that look like candy corn. They almost look like caution cones too in a way, but it's much more subtle, though I mostly wanted that to read as like candy corn. And finally, for the outfit styling, I wanted to make sure she had lots of candy going on, so I first gave her some candy necklaces kind of inspired by
buy the ones on the original board. I gave her one of those super Y2K low-rise belts, but all of the links in the belt just look like different pieces of candy, and there's like beads coming off of it. And then finally on the board, I did include this sign that looks like it's from like a fair or something that says cotton candy on it. I feel like a haunted fair is also super fun around the spooky season time of year, so I definitely wanted to incorporate some cotton candy vibes into this design, so I decided to reserve her hair for that and basically just give her way too much hair going on. But again, she's a little gold demon. There are no rules for how much hair a gold demon can have, so I gave her big old floofy buns on the top of her hair, and then like corkscrew pigtails coming out of those that then end in bubble braids that are separated by like hair ties that look like candy. And then there's also candy corn like barrettes at the end of that, and candy corn barrettes in her hair. And I also made sure to stick a couple of like lollipops and pieces of candy just stuck to her hair, as if she's picked them up over time by just being way too much. I also made sure to include some of those Halloween cookies that have the designs on them that you get small and they bake big on her like little charm belt. I need to like get and make some of those cookies this year, because I swear it's been years since I've had them, and they are definitely like childhood Halloween nostalgia for me. Anyways, when it came to the color palette for this, I definitely struggled a little bit because all of the candies and things that were inspiring me were very all over the place color-wise, and I was kind of battling between leaning into more of that like pastel goth color palette, because I feel like that really suits some of the spooky Halloween aesthetic, and then also just the super intense vibrant color palette that you would see at like a fair or on classic trick-or-treat memorabilia and candy. So I basically tried to include a balance of the two of those, which meant a lot of changing colors, using the hue shifter to kind of tweak and adjust things and try to figure out like what works well together and what looks most unified. It was definitely a process to get this fully colored in a way that was fitting the prompt, where it was like over the top, almost nauseating to look at, because that is very much intentional and the general idea behind this character, but not so much so to where it is like painful for the eyes to gaze upon. I still don't know if I necessarily achieved that, but I think it looks nice, so that's what I went with. Once again with this one, I also added like green ooze coming out of the mouths. I don't know why I did that again with this one. It's something I did with the first one, and it just sort of stuck for both of these designs. I think it looks gross, so I kept it. Anyways, in terms of lore, like I mentioned at the top of this section, this is like a candy gold demon girl. She's very much like a trickster demon, a demon that specifically comes around Halloween night in order to trick children and kind of just mess things up for them, make it so they get sick or they get scared. I think this goal is definitely kind of like a little two-faced, because she would definitely be the kind to like infiltrate your group of trick-or-treaters and like help you get more candy from houses in order for you to like overindulge on candy later. At the same time, I think she's also trying to like earn your trust in order to prank you and scare you in a big way. I think she's also the kind of demon or ghoul who can definitely shapeshift and like almost mimic you and different members of your trick-or-treat group, play pranks on you that way, and she can definitely shapeshift into things that are scarier than the form that I've drawn here. At the end of the day, she's pretty harmless. She's gonna mostly just mess up your night, give you nightmares, give you a stomach ache and cavities, and all just for her own personal enjoyment. So she's mostly a jerk, but you still probably don't want to encounter her whenever you're out trick-or-treating on Halloween night. I feel like you never know when a demon like this is gonna get sick of pulling pranks and just eat you. Our penultimate girl is gonna be based off of this board, which is really just the epitome of Halloween nostalgia and fun. And I'm pulling from a bunch of different nostalgic Halloween eras for this, which are submitted by Bunny3 Holland and Astro_Nautical_. So for this one, my inspiration was really that nostalgia point, kind of getting like trapped in the past and almost like frozen in time. And that was also very inspired by the presence of like the really old TV in one of the inspiration images that you guys sent in. So my concept for this monster is kind of similar to the Candy Ghoul, something that looks very very alluring and friendly on the outside, but it's really something that's just going to trap you and suck you in, kind of get you stuck in time. Almost like you are a movie that has been put on pause or something like that. Stuck in a time loop of Halloween's past or something along those lines. So since this character is based on like childhood nostalgia and kind of that arrested development that we all really kind of want to get sucked into of old Halloween, I wanted it to look very innocent and kind of childlike and adolescent, but also distinctively inhuman. So design-wise, I knew that meant that I wanted this character to have that TV as its head. No human head, just a television. And then I made the rest of the body more humanoid, and I wanted to put it in a very like innocent, kind of relaxed, kind of cute pose. I think at first I was making this character look a little bit more sheepish and scared, but in the end I kind of leaned more into like a friendly but unsettling vibe. For the outfit design on this one, I kind of wanted it to look busy and chaotic, almost like a child playing dress up, just an amalgamation of lots of like cute, spooky Halloween things. So I gave them a little star-spangled cloak and wizard hat sitting on top of the television. I gave them little jack-o'-lanterns on their shoulders with leaves and pine straw and foliage coming out of that. I put them in a cute little fall outfit, maybe something that like your grandma would dress you in. Basically a cute little white button-up shirt, a plaid pinafore with autumn tones, a little yellow apron with a bow on the back, like maybe you're baking Halloween cookies or something like that. And then also a little autumn-toned granny square sweater vest on top of all of that. I also kind of randomly gave them a pair of roller skates instead of shoes because the carpet on one of the images looks just like the carpet at the local skating rink whenever I was growing up. In addition to the eclectic outfit, I also gave them a bunch of accessories that are very reminiscent of vintage Halloween and fall. Like I took some of the cute little banners and cardboard cutouts and strung them between the rabbit ears of the television. I remember whenever I was really little and living in Pittsburgh, my dad used to put a bunch of these little paper bats all over the wall. I love the DIY vibes of old Halloween. It fits. I also gave them some little pumpkin lights, which these I also had around my door whenever I was a child growing up. I still have a couple of them. They've fallen off the lights, but I've had the ones that have survived. And like I said, I have these wrapped around the cord of the TV, and I tried to make the cord look a little bit like a braid or a ponytail coming off the back of the TV. I also gave our character a red scarf to hide the gap between the television and the human body, question mark. You know, it gets cold outside during this time and our character wants to be warm. I also gave them a cute little spooky popcorn bucket, a soda beverage, and a VHS tape because I feel like, you know, spooky movies and watch parties are also a big part of childhood Halloween nostalgia. I gave them a cute little ghost bear stuffed animal as a nod to the bear in my reference board, and I made them floating on top of a pillow that is floating on top of a flying witch's broom, which is kind of a lot going on. I don't know how I feel about it, but I think it kind of leans into the childhood dreamy, hazy nostalgia that we have for this period of time in our lives where everything is kind of like all over the place. I wanted this to look very almost dreamcore, weirdcore, so I think that kind of nails the vibe. And whenever I began the coloring phase, I also made the design on the pillow the same design that is on those like super electric rugs that are in like a skating rink or a Blockbuster. And speaking of colors, whenever I got to the coloring stage of this, it was another really challenging design to balance everything for. As per my board, I really wanted to try to capture all of the various color palettes that are going on from the different eras because I have things that are definitely a lot more vintage on there that feel a little bit more like 1940s, 1950s Halloween, even if they're like, I don't know, from the 70s trying to emulate an earlier period, you know what I mean. And then I also have things that feel a little bit more modern, like 80s, 90s type vibes. Those tend to be a lot more colorful and electric, so I have kind of contrasting color palettes going on here once again, and I really wanted to see if I could capture a balance of both of them somehow. So this was a coloring process with, once again, a lot of experimentation, a lot of utilizing like my hue sliders and saturation sliders and playing around some with gradient maps. I've been using those techniques a lot more in my work lately to tweak colors a lot easier and try to balance out values and brightness and saturation, that sort of thing. Make it so things feel bright and intense without being so very taxing on the eyes. This is one that went through a lot of variation and tweaking. And I don't know if I'm in the end 100% pleased with it, but I do think it generally captures like the weird dreamcore, almost stuck in a liminal space but make it Halloween thing that I'm trying to go for here. And to really sell that in the quote face of my character, by the end I also added a super intense saturated and I made the only image on the screen just a super creepy single eye. I feel like it's definitely giving Bill Cipher vibes, basically. So to go into my imagined lore for this character, like I said, sort of the epitome of Halloween nostalgia, a character that appears to you and kind of makes you stuck in a trance. I feel like this character would almost get to you through your favorite nostalgic Halloween movie or television show, or just appear to you at the end of your hallway, like looking like this, almost like a weird, twisted Halloween imaginary friend. And then trap you reliving your favorite nostalgic Halloween day like over and over and over again until the point where it just feels like utter torture. But I do think in your like trapped dream state, this weird little Halloween goblin would be there with you. I feel like it's maybe not particularly malicious and more so just, like I said, more of an imaginary friend, and it's just a little bit lonely and it wants you to stay there. But you could escape by winning some kind of game or pranking it or making a deal with it. Like there's definitely a way to escape your trance, but it's more along the lines of outwitting or besting this weird little entity. I also definitely think this is an entity that would only appear and capture either teenagers or adults, because those are the only people who are gonna have Halloween nostalgia. So it's super uncanny whenever you see this entity haunting the commercials on your old VHS tapes or standing at the end of your hallway. And finally, big arachnophobia warning here. If you don't want to see spiders, maybe just skip to the very end of the video now. I'll have a little timestamp on screen. Again, sorry if you don't like spiders. I like spiders. For our final monster, she is going to be inspired by this board, just chock full of spiders and spider webs, which was mostly submitted by createDA_guardian_production and Artie_draws. So for my final spider lady, I wanted to lean a little bit more spooky again, since the middle two designs in this video were a little bit more lighthearted. And in addition to the board that I made of this character is a little inspired by my real life experiences, because lately I have been going for walks a lot with my partner on his property in the evenings, and the amount of giant spiders that have erected webs just absolutely everywhere doesn't really scare me, because I do like spiders, but it does give me pause, because I don't see well in the dark and I don't want to run into one. I've had a couple of close calls where I all of a sudden turn around and shine my flashlight on something and there's just a spider a couple inches from my face. I also have a couple of these larger spiders making webs on my porch right now, like orb weavers, banana spiders, and they're so big. So I wanted to design like a spooky yokai style spider lady that kind of protects and watches over the spider population as they erect their webs absolutely everywhere during the fall months. Design wise, I had a lot of like disparate spider designs to pull from, because the submitters had like a lot of variety in there. So other than that, the main point of inspiration was like spider webs basically, and also just the idea of like Japanese ghost women. That's kind of the inspiration for this, just sort of like a misty shadow you see in the dark, kind of white and ethereal, but with like a mostly obscured face. Kind of a spider mother figure, if you will. I kind of wanted to lean into some other mother energy for this character, but almost a little bit more caring and benevolent, not really terrible and abusive like the other mother is. Anyways, for her design, I really wanted to lean a lot into like a big silhouette, something that's very striking, something that would stand out if you see her from far away, just kind of gliding across your field and looking threatening. At first, I was going for a design that was a little spookier and more on the grotesque side, but then I almost kind of went 180 and decided to make her look a little bit more graceful. I ended up giving her a white robe with long draping sleeves that have like a blood red color on the inside of them. You'll see that a little bit later. I gave her a segmented black corset on top of that, one that has a lot of that like sharp Victorian shape, kind of looking like the segments of a spider web. And for this one, I also pulled a lot from the real fuzzy garden spiders that you see around all the time. So I made her skirt and bustle area look almost like the rounded fuzzy abdomen of a garden spider. And then I made it flow out into a bottom section that once again has that segmented spiderweb shape going on. I wanted it to almost look like layers and layers of cobwebs that have been built up, almost something that looks like it was made by Shelob from Lord of the Rings. That kind of white fade that it has is something that I made a little bit later during the coloring process, but that is the direction I ended up going in for that. To make her silhouette a little bit more spidery and imposing and almost regal, I gave her a set of fuzzy spider legs protruding from the back of her body. I gave these spider webs thick webbing in between them with little spiders riding on them. This is going to be important in the lore later on. They serve a very important purpose for this character. And of course, most of the horror of this design is definitely happening around the face and hair and hands region of this character. I wanted her to look really disturbing and uncanny from far away, kind of have that beauty quality that some ghostly girls have, but then also just look really unsettling and just like an overall bad time. So I gave her super long black hair just dripping over her face, flowing down to the bottom of her feet. I put some of it up in a bun in the back, once again to reference the large abdomen of a spider, and eventually I gave her even more hair in the very back of her design, just flowing weightless in the wind, just sort of hovering again, more like a ghost or an apparition. I gave her some horns on the top of her head to kind of reference a spider's pedipalps. I think that's how you say that. And underneath all of that oily black hair, I gave her a mess of 8 eyes, an unsettlingly wide smile, and some fangs to once again make her look a little bit more spidery. I once again also wanted her pose to be very true to her characterization, so I kind of put her in this like hovering ethereal stance, and I have her hands with her unsettling super sharp claws up near her face, widely spread out so that she can have like spider webbing between them. That way she can gaze on her tiny erected friends as they crawl around on her hands. For the color palette, I wanted to keep things very neutral for the most part. I was mostly using whites and creams and grays and blacks, some browns here and there, some blues here and there, but mostly using red as the main accent color. I only made her boots, the inside of her sleeves, her little hair ties, and her eyes red so that the eyes mostly stand out if you see her lurking like a disturbing distance away in your field. And I also had more of a focus on texture with this design. I wanted her to feel a little softer and more nurturing, so I pulled a lot more from those fuzzy spiders and just the general texture of thick cobwebs and stuff like that. So I also added fuzzy texture to the spider legs in the back, and also just some fur trim in a couple of areas like her sleeves, the bottom of her corset, and the bottom of her gown. And speaking of nurturing motherly energy, I almost imagined this character as, like I said, a protector of spiders and almost like a literal spider mother for the area that she haunts and inhabits. I sometimes see spiders in such odd places and think about how crazy it would be for a spider to crawl all that way from like the woods. And there's definitely very practical scientific explanations for why spiders end up where they do, like riding on air currents and just being born closer to that area. But I thought it would be fun if this character basically hatches spider eggs on her like giant webs on the back of her back and like distributes spider eggs across fields into various places, and then other spiders can get on her webs and she can transport them and rehome them. And I feel like she is mostly a benevolent, calm apparition for the most part. But like a lot of animals in nature, how they kind of only become violent if you like mess with their babies or something like that. I feel like she only really appears to you and becomes scary or violent and begins haunting you if you mess with a spider web, like knock it down, or you spray her spiders with something, or you disturb the eggs, or you could just mow your lawn because you have to mow your lawn, and she could get pissed about it, and bam, there you go. Now you have a ghostly spider woman haunting you. I also definitely think the mist that surrounds her when you see her isn't a mist at all, and instead thousands of tiny little spider webs riding the currents of the wind, distributing spiders, and they are definitely something you can get caught up in. And if you piss her off enough, you'll end up like Frodo whenever Shelob got a hold of him in Lord of the Rings, you know? She'll just wrap you right up and hang you from a tree. Anyways, I'm very happy with the spooky factor of this character. I just want you to imagine walking alone in the woods and you hit a clearing and you shine your flashlight, and in the distance you can just make out the silhouette of this thing slowly inching closer to you. Maybe you start feeling the air getting thicker, almost like you're getting wrapped up in something. You find it's getting harder to move. The air, it's getting a little too thick to breathe, and your mouth is getting sticky. Before you know it, you can no longer see anything. Your eyes are getting heavier, and you have no memory of when you took your last breath. Then suddenly, you're jolted awake, and... Anyways, welcome to the end of the video, folks. I hope you enjoyed all the spooky lady monsters that I designed in this episode. I had a lot of fun with these. I always enjoy designing ghosts and ghouls and monsters and stuff like that. And I actually have a lot of unused ideas for this video because I came up with a lot of different concepts from the boards that you guys sent in, but I just didn't end up getting to all of them. So I would definitely love to do like another round of these based on the same round of submissions. Maybe one a little closer to the end of the spooky season. Maybe one a little bit darker in tone even, something that's a little bit explicitly creepier. I have a lot of plans for October, so we'll see if I get to that or not. But to me, the spooky season doesn't even necessarily have to end in October. Maybe it could even be more in November. We'll see. I don't know. Anyways, by the time this is really out, it will officially be October, full-on spooky season. I'm so excited. I have many plans and ideas. We'll see if I can get to all of them in time. And as a side note, thank you guys for 400,000 subscribers. Didn't have time to acknowledge that in my last video, but that's a crazy number. That's so many of you. But I appreciate each and every one of you. The fact that you watched these very silly videos is the whole reason I can do this. So I appreciate all of you guys so very much. And on a similar note of appreciation, some of you guys have been sending me some character designs that you do based on the same prompts that I cover in my videos. And I think it would be really fun if I start showing some of those designs at the end of my videos. Just people who have like done really cool stuff based on the same prompts. Again, only with your consent, only if you want me to show those in my videos. But if you do create art based on some of the same prompts that I use in my videos and you want me to feature them in like a future character design video, post them to Instagram and just tag me and include in the description that you want me to like include it in the video or something like that. Please don't just send them to my DMs because my DMs are a mess right now. I will not find it, but if you tag me, hopefully I will find all of them. Anyways, thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. If you did, I know it was once again probably a super long one. Subscribe if you want to see more festive content like this. More is on the way. Happy spooky season. But as always, the biggest thank you for this video and every single one of my videos goes to my amazing patrons, and especially my executive producers. You are the true monster girls that haunt my life, and I am so very thankful for it. Cinderus, Speak of the Devil, Tiro2, Donna Shipley, Mystic, Danielle Bergner, Scribble, Jazz the Bat, Mushroom Sita, Ghastly, Galaxy Stardust 035, Luxabar, My Name is A, Becca, Nilo Nam, Cyrus Orion, Jenny Craftsma, I Do TKD, Ren, Bantoff the Yellow, Cloud Max, Villy Smelly, Stabby Horse, Heebie Jeebies, Cardia X, Christina Cantia Art, Fiasco, Mossy Raven, Silver, 2 Prism, I'm not saying that name on the internet, ABW Makes, Ice Kavan, A Wendu, Liana, Ermler Jean, Phoenix, PNG Not Found, Freedom and Gus Gus, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Sushi McNushi, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.